Good afternoon, everyone. And today we have a lovely Natascha Domeisen from Sotheby's, who is a book specialist specializing in illuminated books and manuscripts. So it's so lovely to have you today, Natascha.
Thanks for having me.
Such an interesting specialization. Can you tell us a bit more about what inspired you to become a specialist in illuminated books and manuscripts?
Yeah, of course. So basically, I really loved and enjoyed reading as a kid. So that was a given, basically. And I really enjoyed kind of history books and just learning about history. And I really enjoyed kind of medieval courtly kind of history. That I absolutely loved that. And then I kind of realized, I love the physicality of books. And then kind of reading these historical novels, it was like, actually, I really love and I'm really intrigued by manuscripts. Is that something I can work with? So when I started my studies in Heidelberg, I kind of selected courses where I could handle medieval manuscripts. And the first time I touched a medieval manuscript, I was like, this is it, I want to do this for the rest of my life. So it was a very slippery slope, I would say.
And what are the best courses if one wants to become a specialist in such an area? Are there any specific courses in the university? How would it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are two ways you can kind of approach this. You can go quite an academic route, which I initially did, or you could kind of do a more hands-on kind of practical approach. So for me, obviously, I studied at Heidelberg University, did my undergrad there, and then realized I really want to specialize in manuscripts. So I went on to do a medieval master's in Oxford, where I kind of continued to specialize in medieval manuscripts. And then I followed it up with a DPhil, so a doctorate, to really kind of go as far as I could, specializing from like an academic perspective in medieval manuscripts. And that was really good. And then I made the switch into the trade. But obviously what you can also do is you can basically you can do your undergrad and then you can try and do one of the internship schemes, for example. That's a really nice way to kind of go in and learn the trade really from the kind of bottom up. And kind of intern with a book dealer. I think that's a really good way of doing that. So you can either come from this very specialized kind of academic perspective, or I would say you really learn on the object, kind of going and like cataloging lots of things.
And as someone coming from the academic perspective and entering the trade from academic perspective, what do you think are the advantages of coming from the academic perspective versus someone who did an internship scheme?
Sure. I think both ways are really, really good, and both of them obviously have their merit. I think for me, coming from the academic perspective, I was really, really lucky to kind of work alongside and kind of learn from like some of the, in an academic way, some of the world leading specialists. That was honestly super, super helpful to like profit from their expertise. But then obviously if you do the internship, you will learn from people in the trade who really have this like deep kind of practical knowledge, who can open a book and just immediately tell you, oh, this is 1510 France Tours. It's just a slightly different, style of learning, I would say. And I enjoy both of them.
Myself, I never approached it the academic way. I started with a graduate traineeship, and I always lacked especially when I started, and I was quite jealous of the people who approached the academic way. Don't you see it as an advantage, cataloging-wise, if you have the academic background working in books and manuscripts?
Yes, maybe for the cataloging, potentially, because you might be familiar with some kind of reference works or maybe some more obscure things. But I think it's really about kind of working with the object and really kind of looking at it. It's like physicality, it's materiality, and kind of working from that. And maybe the academic route will teach you the technical terms maybe quicker. Well, if you do like an internship, you might go like, one step at a time. But I think it's really important in this type of work that you're not just an academic, but that you bring kind of the ability to work with clients, to basically sell these lovely items we're lucky to work with. And sometimes if you have this purely academic background, you might need to kind of work on those additional skills first to kind of get into it.
No, of course. And how does a day of illuminated books and manuscripts specialist look like?
Yeah, that's super, super exciting, and that's something I really enjoy because I basically don't really know what the usual day kind of looks like. It really can fluctuate so heavily where we are in the auction cycle. I mean, there's some kind of boring tasks where you have to answer emails. That's of course part of it. But if we get closer to a sale, then I'm allowed to work lots more with the actual kind of manuscripts. Like, do all the cataloging. But then throughout the year, I have to travel a lot to kind of meet with clients and do some outreach. So I really enjoy this kind of versatility and the job offers. Mm-hmm.
And you'll have a sale coming up soon. And what are you working now? Is there any interesting object that you can tell us more about?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I actually brought the manuscript with me, which I would love to show you. I'll just quickly grab it. Because this is basically one of my favorites from the upcoming sale. So this is a French book of, you can't see it yet, but I swear it is a French book of hours. It has these lovely clasps. The binding is a bit later. So yeah, this is one of my favorites at the moment. I'll open it for us. It's made by some of the leading Parisian artists of the time. And it comes with this fully illuminated and decorated calendar with a lot of like hunting kind of scenes and identifiable birds. And it was made for a female patron. Let's see if I can find her for us.
Such exquisite illuminations.
It's really lovely. So honestly, I really enjoyed kind of working with this one and really kind of,
See the bee here fighting,
exactly.
or the bird trying to eat the bee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like lots of. So this is special because we have lots of pelicans. So the motif of the pelican kind of comes back quite regularly, and we have lots of these quite charming kind of mythical and mystical creatures. And you can see like the gold is fantastic. And what I thought was particularly interesting is obviously that it was very likely made for a woman. And I'm quite interested in like female ownership and kind of how they, here's the kind of the idolized patroness basically.
And why there is no crescent?
That is basically the 1 million question. I'm assuming the book was made as a gift, and I wonder if maybe it was meant as a wedding gift, and that union maybe didn't come to pass, and that's why they never filled it in. Or they wanted to leave it open to kind of re-gift it to someone else. So that is really, that is the question. So it still kind of offers intriguing kind of mysteries, this lovely book. So that was, that's certainly like, the Pelican Hours, that's what this book is called. That was certainly one of my favorites of this year's sale.
Really exquisite and with all the small details.
It's wonderful. It's so fun. Like it's
such a beautiful book. And was there any throughout you being a part of the trade, any favorite book that you dealt in?
Honestly, that's such a difficult question because obviously every time I approach a manuscript, I'm immediately intrigued and entranced and this is my my newest favorite. But I do come from the kind of Germanic side, so I started with German manuscripts. So obviously if we have something like that coming up for auction, like in the next sale we have a Middle High German fragment from a very popular Middle High German text, which is called in English the Italian Guest. It was basically kind of a guide for the German nobility on how to behave properly from table manners, but also how to be a just ruler. And so this was a super exciting find because it could be a new manuscript because I couldn't find a pre-existing text that this fragment could have originated from.
Was there ever a manuscript that, for example, you encountered during your studies or during your work which completely changed your life? Maybe you're not sure to continue on this path or not, and then you sort of worked with this manuscript and you were like, this is it?
That's a very good question. I think the only time in my career where I wasn't sure if this was really for me was basically when I finished my doctorate, because it was very stressful.
Awesome.
And I felt like at one point I was taking out the joy of like working with manuscripts. So that was quite high pressured, obviously. But to be honest, I think it was supposed to be me putting on the pressure. So I think that was the only point in my career where I was like, oh, I'm not sure. But I took a breather, took a break, and then I was like, I do love manuscripts. Like, it's silly to try and do anything else. But I think one of those very important manuscripts for me was certainly the collection of Mechtel of Savoy. So she was basically a Swiss princess and titular queen of, now I have to think about, in Italian, Naples it was. Yeah. So she was the titular queen of Naples, and she had created or had commissioned a selection of books. And what I found was particularly fascinating, so I got the chance of actually studying them in person when I worked in Heidelberg. And that was one of those, very important moments for me, because I was able to basically touch the same manuscripts that she had commissioned according to her own taste, her own interest. She selected the texts, she had them decorated according to her interest, like very heavily kind of decorated. But they were made on paper and in a style which many would maybe call kind of quite amateurish. But just that was kind of what was available to her, and I don't know, I thought that was a really kind of touching and fascinating kind of collection of manuscripts.
Oh, that is beautiful. What do you think are the main qualities that the books and manuscript specialists should possess?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I think good starting qualities are obviously like know your object, basically. Like if you have kind of a broad knowledge of different types of manuscripts, different kind of time periods, I think that's super, super useful. But then also I think a good specialist will bring like certain business skills, because obviously you need to know and understand the market to price it right. But then also I think the people skills are super, super important. Because otherwise you become quite unbalanced if you're just an academic or if you're just a business person. It needs to be a nice balance, I'd say.
Very nice. And I wanted to ask you, because obviously books and manuscripts is viewed by some of the collectors as a sort of more, let's say, elitist area. And some of our viewers, they haven't yet started collecting or looking into books and manuscripts. What are the main things one should look at while looking at the illuminated manuscript? What are the main criteria how one should pick the book that they would like to purchase? Yeah,
I think that's a very, very good question. And I think what I would advise kind of people new to collecting books and manuscripts is go out there, go to like lots of events, look at a lot of different books and manuscripts, just to get like a feel for what kind of interests you. And I think like talk to a lot of people who have been in the trade or even in the museum. Like just talk to like a lot of specialists and see kind of what they can tell you about different objects. And then kind of, I think once you kind of see like, oh, maybe I like Dutch manuscripts more, I might like French manuscripts more. I think then once you have that, then I would actually go out and start to think about buying something. And but again, I would always heavily advise to like, I'm very Swiss in that regard, compare prices and see kind of what a dealer kind of charges for something, what an item goes for at auction. Because obviously an auction price is very different from a dealer price. And so I think it's important to like understand that difference. And then I think you can make financially wise and also very pleasing choices with what you get, I'd say.
Of course. And can I ask you, what are the main sort of things with the condition as well that one should look at while looking at the illuminated book? That's a very important question as well. I mean, for some people, condition is super, super important, and they say like, I want an absolutely immaculate manuscript, if that's a leaf or a complete manuscript. And others say like, oh, if there's a bit of pigment flaking or if there's a bit of darkening of the edges, that's absolutely fine. I think the most important thing is that
the condition stands in relation to the price. So if someone charges you a lot of money for an item that's in really, really bad condition, then that should be kind of a red flag or make you think. But again, that's, I think, only something that you learn when you talk to kind of other collectors, dealers, auction houses, specialists. So I think it's really that exchange with other collectors, I think, is really helpful to beginning collectors.
Nice. And can I ask you for
sure.
Condition-wise for this particular manuscript? So is the binding contemporary?
So I think this is a 16th, if not 17th century binding. So it's a later binding. So it's not the original, but I still think it's actually quite charming. Like with the kind of the gold here and the clasp. I think that's a really kind of sympathetically done binding. And then if you look at the manuscript, the important, I mean, for me, the important bit isn't, of course, the inside. I think the condition is really good. So if we look at the gold, for example, it's very like nice and burnished. It's still quite shiny, and we have the ink, I think, looks quite good as well. Obviously, you can see the first couple of leaves are a bit darkened, but I mean that's just something to be expected because it's a book of hours. It would have been used every day, basically for the daily prayers. But if we now could just open this kind of random page, you can see the vellum is really nice and clean, and I think also the pigments are really fantastic. So the color quality is really, really good. But yeah, I would always, like, if you're unsure about something, honestly, like, ask different people for advice. Look, for example, here, I think the condition is fantastic. Yes. So that's something, if someone is kind of new to collecting and want to buy a complete book of hours, then I would say this is a really lovely example where you couldn't go wrong.
And it's complete as well.
Yes, it's complete and made by 3 different artists. Oh, so you can obviously feel free to open it. Made by 3 different artists, and what particularly fascinates me is that it was really made for a woman, most likely, because I think this kind of female book ownership throughout history, I think, is very fascinating.
And what do you think? Do you have more books of ours, manuscripts that are coming on the market that were owned by the ladies, or that were, for example, illuminated by some female nuns? Coming on the market than they were before, or not really?
That's honestly such a good question. I'm not sure if the numbers really have changed, but I think we are more kind of attuned and we look out for different signs, because very often, obviously, female artists wouldn't leave their name, and like with nuns, I mean, sometimes we're lucky and the nun actually signed made by sister so and so. That's really, really helpful, but very often it's difficult to trace kind of. And that's what the fascinating thing is. It's difficult to trace female ownership and female craftsmanship. And so if we have something like this where I can tell you, like, I think this was made for a woman, and it's really a very specific type of manuscript which really shows her kind of character and her interests, then I think that's like absolutely fascinating. So I think we're just more attuned to looking out for these signs. I think research has really progressed really well in that regard.
I see. And what is the sort of correlation between the work of world of books and manuscripts and the generic classical collecting world? Does, for example, how do the currents in the classical collecting world affect the books and manuscripts, or is it pretty much its own?
That's such a good question, to be honest. I mean, I think book and manuscript collecting can feel quite niche, because a lot of people think, I need to know all of these things about books before I can actually buy one. But I don't think that's actually the case. I think if you enjoy something, like if you find something aesthetically pleasing, it doesn't matter if you don't know the attribution. It's what gives you joy. When it comes to how does the book kind of market fit into the wider world, the wider art world and the art market, I think we're very much part of the kind of trends and currents in a way. So if the art market does well, then obviously we will do well as well. If the art market is a bit weak at the moment or in a recession, then obviously it affects books and manuscripts as well. So yeah, I would say in that way, obviously the two are connected, but it's it's quite, in a way, sometimes I feel the book market is also quite insular, so it's quite protected as well.
And I wanted to ask you also, and you've got the cross collecting, because I know that's now it's such a big topic when we talk about the classic or the antique art world. Is it also a big thing in books with the cross collecting? If, for example, you know that you have now a contemporary art sale review at Sotheby's. And do you also have any ongoing projects where the books will be showcased together with some contemporary art auction?
Yes, and that's kind of one of the things I really want to drive as well, that we show kind of books and manuscripts more in that wider context as well, because I think the artworks really speak to each other, obviously, if we kind of showcase them next to each other. And so I think in a way, if you're a paintings collector, then I think the easiest way to kind of cross-collect would obviously be to buy like individual leaves, which you can display quite easily. But I think a few of our clients actually do this. If you're a medieval sculpture collector, then very often it is a slippery slope into collecting medieval manuscripts. And I think that's such a lovely kind of connection to have that and to display these items side by side, because many artists, for example, in the Middle Ages, worked not just on manuscripts, but were maybe in kind of goldsmithing or stained glass. So historically, there was already this cross-media kind of fertilization, which I'm hoping we can bring out more over the coming years.
Very nice. And is there anything, like, for example, if there is a person out there buying contemporary art and thinking to get into books and manuscripts, sort of collecting area, is there anything you could tell them in order to tell them why this person should really look into this area of collecting?
Yeah, of course. I think there are like multiple answers I could give you for this one. I mean, obviously, I think books and manuscript leaves are such a special and unique item, and I think one of the main selling points of medieval art is obviously that it is utterly unique. If you buy a medieval leaf, yes, there might be sister leaves from the same manuscript, but this is the only piece of that kind that you can get. So I think that uniqueness is super inspiring. And then I'm going to give you also the bit of the humorous answer. If you buy a Picasso, you get one painting. If you buy a book of hours, you get like 21. So it's not a bad deal, to be honest, and it's more affordable as well. So.
And you also get something that inspired the whole art world and influenced
100%.
everyone. And I wanted to ask you about the restoration.
Yeah.
How does it work with books of ours in the restoration? I know that it's not something that book people would really like to do, but is there any situations where you must restore?
I think, again, that's a very, very good question. So I think it's really important that obviously we, with medieval books and manuscripts, and like lots of pieces of art, although we call ourselves owners or collectors, we only ever look after them for a limited time while we are on this earth. So I think it's really important to just make sure that we give a piece of art the best possible chances of survival for as long as possible. With books and manuscripts, like, they have survived for a very long time. There's a lot of craftsmanship, a lot of material science in a way that went into creating this item. And if something has survived for 500 years, it's likely that it will survive for 500 years more if we look after it. So if very often with books, is that the spine, obviously there's the most stress is basically along this line, so it can be that the cover kind of snaps up. So that's something that's just a repair that sometimes has to be done. It's not something that we usually do, so we basically sell the books as seen, so just to not interfere with the condition. But then obviously if you're a collector, I completely understand, and I think I would do it myself as well in that way, that I would kind of do very, very kind of minute kind of conservation of repairs if needed, basically to make sure that the book kind of has the best chances of survival.
And how about the pages? Is there any restoration of the pages or any way of
I don't think, to be honest, it's really needed. I mean, it depends what you want to achieve. For example, in research, if a text has become illegible, there are like different ways we can approach it. I mean, sometimes people clean up pages, but it's again not something we do and not something I would recommend, because you would, like, unless there's like a specific academic reason why you want it more legible. But there's so many great technological advances made that we don't need to kind of clean up something. And I also wouldn't recommend it, because obviously every mark you see in a manuscript has its own history, and we often find like marks of usage, so that people, like, when they thumb the manuscript in a specific place, we know like, oh, this page was particularly like important for this reader. So I think they're really not, they're a feature, not a bug, I would say.
And have you ever came across the manuscript that was, for example, restored in the 19th century and the beginning of 20th century, that's like reversible or irreversible, that has sort of shifted the value, or that has changed something about it?
Yeah, no, that 100% happens, like particularly like obviously in the 18th and 19th century, that people kind of disassembled manuscripts because they thought that there would be more value in like selling individual pages. So that's one of the things which we encounter quite regularly, or that there is kind of a badly done repair. And it really just depends on kind of the level, because if the overpainting is too bad, that's for single leaves particularly, like, then it does really impact the value. But I think it really depends on kind of the grade. If it has been overpainted too much, then it might not make much at an auction. That does happen, sadly.
But were there any cases that, for example, cases with Rubens or with Rembrandt, when they would purchase an artwork and then add something on top of it, and now people look at it differently because was there something like this with books and manuscripts?
Yes, so you're absolutely right. So what sometimes happens is that especially with kind of luxury commissions, sometimes the patron runs out of money and then the book remains unfinished. And then we have basically a second kind of campaign of artists working on the manuscript, kind of adding, kind of elaborating a bit more. So that does happen. And that's actually, from an art historic perspective, that's super fascinating. So that actually does add to the value of the manuscript, if it's not done really badly.
I see. And what do you think of this exhibition that was just happening in France about a year ago of the famous Book of Hours? I know that it will go back to the storage for quite a few years, but what was your opinion on this exhibition?
So I went, and I think I might have even gone twice, to be honest, because it was such a landmark exhibition. So to see and I think it was the Tres Richeurs exhibition you referred to. So seeing this absolutely magnificent manuscript kind of in person, and seeing, so basically what they did is they disassembled it for restoration purposes to, again, as I said, basically kind of continue to look after it and make it accessible, hopefully for the next generations. So they disassembled the calendar and displayed the individual calendar leaves in these absolutely top of the art cases. And that was, for me, that was a huge pleasure to kind of see this in person. So it was a huge privilege that happened in my lifetime. And I think, honestly, the Château de Chantilly is doing fantastic work kind of on preserving its heritage.
And do you know if there will be any more important manuscript exhibition like this happening in the upcoming years around Europe, or?
Yeah, I would. I'd say so. I mean, the Louvre is super, super active. And I think the interest in manuscripts, like the British Library did an exhibition on medieval books and basically medieval women. And I think that really keeps fascinating the modern audiences. So I'm pretty sure that there will be lots more exciting things to come.
And what's the most collectible areas? Manuscripts from France, manuscripts from Netherlands, from Germany?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, obviously the French are quite popular, and the kind of Netherlandish later kind of 15th and 16th century are super, super popular because the level of artistry is just so high. I think when it comes to collecting these different types of regional or different kind of origins, like France, Netherlands, Germany, I think it really comes down to personal taste. But I would say that like French ones are very popular because just the level of artistry is so high, and that's what many people think this is how the medieval illuminated manuscript looks like. So they're quite popular in that regard.
I see. And I wanted also to ask you, I know that there have been quite a few movies about the world of the books and manuscripts, like the Nines Gate and so on. Has it somehow affected your work, or any prejudice about the books trade, books dealers?
It's very funny that you mentioned Ninth Gate, because I actually did watch it the other day, because I was like, this sounds like the movie for me. I don't think there wasn't much content about the actual books, which was really funny. But no, certainly like the media and also the BBC, which I have to mention here, are quite influential when it comes to our understanding of these historical objects. And one of the main problems I'm actually facing has kind of shown up again on Instagram the other day, is we still portray specialists when they work with manuscripts. We still show them wearing the white cotton gloves. And so basically that's just, at least in the UK and the most parts of Europe, that's not something we do anymore, because the cotton gloves really hinder your dexterity, and they can also lift pigment off the page. But still, this myth of the white gloves kind of keeps going, because it's just perpetuated by Hollywood and sadly our media.
And is there any sort of also like prejudice within the other specializations of the art historians? Because now being a part of SADBIS, which has a lot of other departments, is there any prejudice about books and books and manuscripts department?
I mean, I guess in general, obviously, if someone hears about someone who's being a book specialist, then obviously you would think about someone who's maybe quite academic, maybe a bit kind of clumsy when it comes to working with actual people instead of books. So I think that's one of the prejudices that we have to kind of fight against. But I have to say, so far, I mean, at least among Sotheby's, I think the prejudices were very positive, actually very flattering, so I can't complain too much.
That's nice. And how does it feel working in the auction house versus working for a dealer? Because I remember when we met at the art fair a few years ago.
Honestly, I'm very, very thankful that I was able to experience kind of both sides of this world. I feel like obviously working for a dealer, or like in general a smaller company, you might have in a way more flexibilities and can act quicker. But I think if you work for a big company, you obviously have a lot of infrastructure, and even if it might take a bit longer to like get this machinery moving, once it is like moving in full force, I think there's nothing that can stop it, and nothing that can equal it. And obviously now working for Sotheby's, we have such a global audience, we have such a range of items that I get to work with. And that's something I'm incredibly appreciative of. It's very fun.
I also wanted to ask you, I know that you'll have a sale coming up quite soon. Can you tell us a bit more about the sale and other highlights, as well as
Yes, of course.
This one?
Yeah. So I'm very, very happy with this year's sale. So we kept the books and manuscripts in one sale, which I think makes a lot of sense. So I'm super happy because, as I said, this is kind of one of my highlights, but we also have an Italian antiphonal from the 13th century, which is really fantastic. We have lots of wonderful single leaves, which I really enjoy kind of working with, and I think they're just very, very pleasing to look at. You have lots of color, lots of vibrancy there. That was really great. And then one of my kind of personal favorites is obviously we have that kind of Middle High German fragment from the Italian guest. That was incredibly fun to work with, and just kind of figure out, where in the actual kind of book is this, where does this fragment kind of, that text stem from, what kind of motifs do we find on the fragment. And then also you can see, if you look at the fragment, it was literally cut in the shape of a book binding. And so kind of seeing how these medieval leaves were kind of used, maybe abused in their later life but I think is super, super fascinating to see. And so I'm hoping, I'm hoping that the next owner will be very, very happy with it, because it's a great fragment.
Nice. And when is the sale?
So it closes on the 9th of July.
9th of July and starts?
So basically we're live now. We're not open for bidding yet, but the sale is live, so you can have a look at it online. I'm also posting lots of videos about the individual items on my Instagram, on LinkedIn as well. So if someone wants to have a bit of a different angle, a different approach, rather than just the cataloging, then definitely check it out.
And when is it going to be on view at
yes, so the sale will be, or the items will be on view from the 4th to the 8th of July.
Yeah. So perfect. Guys, please look out for this lovely sale. And thank you very much, Natascha. And thank you very much for watching us. And stay tuned.